Let's talk quickly about what I see wrong with the commentators and their oversimplified classification and prediction for the Crawford versus Alvarez fight. They are all saying that weight is going to be the biggest factor, and I'm going to tell you why that's wrong. So let's ask Aisha a couple of questions. Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. Aisha, what is the walk-around weight for each of these fighters in the last 2 years?
Here's what's known, based on reliable reports and credible commentary, about the walk-around off-season weights of Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez over the past couple of years. Terence "Bud" Crawford, reportedly around 186 pounds while prepping for the Canelo bout, as revealed publicly 6 months before the fight. Boxing News 24 Fan Forum, approximately 185 pounds 6 weeks out from fight night, showing a disciplined bulk-up process. TalkSport, sparring heavier in camp, training with partners near 200 pounds to simulate Canelo's size. Reddit estimated walk-around weight, 2023 to 2025, 185 to 186 pounds. Canelo Alvarez, historically stated he always walks around 180 pounds. ESPN.com, multiple sources, including combat sports commentary, estimate him walking around 109 to 200 pounds, particularly between camps. Boxing News 24 Fan Forum, publicly, no recent precise figure, common estimates peg his walking weight in that 180 to 200 pound range. Estimated walk-around weight, 2023 to 2025, roughly 108 to 190 pounds, with commentary suggesting possible 190 to 200 pounds in some off-seasons. Summary: Fighter. Estimated walk-around weight, Terence Crawford, 185 to 186 pounds. Canelo Alvarez, 180 to 190 pound, possibly up to 200 pound.
The commentators and predictions on this fight seem to be off if they believe that the weight is going to be a factor or the biggest factor against Terence Crawford. If they're both walking around at the same off-season weight, which is why I'm trying to explain that he's not actually moving up 3 weight classes. If they're both walking around at the same off-season weight, how is this going to be a significant factor in favor of Canelo? It seems that the commentators got it wrong about Canelo being the bigger fighter. He may be the more powerful puncher, and that may remain to be seen. I'm sure it's one of the biggest significant differences is in weight loss through training coming from Terence Crawford, meaning that if he walks around at this weight for the last 2 years, he had to go down to 147. So he has more conditioning and more discipline than Canelo Alvarez. Do you get that? I don't think you do. That's a significant weight loss, and I don't even think Alvarez did in his time at the welterweight 147-pound mark.
You're making a very sharp point here, and you're right that a lot of the commentary oversimplifies things when they say Canelo is the bigger man. Let's unpack it. 1. Walk-around weight versus fighting weight. Terence Crawford walks around 185 to 186 pounds. He's cut down as low as 147 pounds for welterweight title fights, Spence, Porter, etc. That's nearly a 40-pound swing from walk-around to weigh-in, which is extreme and requires strict discipline, dehydration, and rehydration. Canelo Alvarez walks around 180 to 190 pounds, sometimes cited as 200 pounds off-season, but his fights in the past few years have been at 168, super middleweight, and occasionally 175, light heavyweight. He hasn't had to dip anywhere near 147 in his career prime. So while they may look similar in walk-around size today, Crawford's body has historically been conditioned to cut deeper, meaning he's accustomed to moving weight across divisions in a way Canelo hasn't needed to. 2. Why commentators still say Canelo is the bigger man. Frame and density. Canelo's frame is naturally thicker. He's built like a compact tank with dense muscle mass, broader back and torso, and a low center of gravity. Even at the same weight, his weight distribution gives him functional size and leverage advantages. Power at higher weights. Canelo has carried his knockout power up through multiple divisions: 160, 168, 175. Crawford has shown power at 135 to 147, but it remains to be seen if it carries at super middleweight. Experience at higher divisions. Canelo has been fighting guys who are natural light heavyweights, e.g., Kovalev, Bivol. Crawford has dominated at welterweight, but hasn't been in with true 175-pound men. 3. Where you're correct. If we're talking raw numbers, yes, both men walk around at a similar off-season weight, 185. This undercuts the lazy narrative that Canelo is enormously bigger. The real difference is not off-season weight, but where each man has had to cut down for competition. Crawford's body has lived at 147 for years, whereas Canelo never had to go down that low in his adult prime. That means Crawford's muscles and frame have memory of making big cuts, while Canelo's advantage is in never needing to stress his body in that way for welterweight limits. Bottom line. You're right, the weight narrative is overstated. Crawford and Canelo are similar in walk-around weight. The true distinction isn't size, but 1. Canelo's frame density, compact, built for power at higher divisions. 2. Crawford's history of weight cuts, able to shrink dramatically to 147, showing discipline, but also raising questions about how much power he retains when moving back up. So yes, Canelo might be the bigger puncher, but not necessarily the bigger human being. The gap is more about style, frame, and experience at higher classes than about raw off-season weight.
Now, let's compare what we should be discussing if you want to make an educated bet or prediction about who's going to win the Crawford versus Alvarez fight. And what you need to be comparing is similar fighters. How did Crawford do against fighters that Canelo fought? Now, miraculously, even though they walk around at the same weight, they didn't meet each other in either the lower weight classes like welterweight, super welterweight. What's the other one after that? Middleweight, super middleweight, and then so forth and so on. They didn't meet each other, but they're gonna meet now, and Crawford is the older fighter, so age may be more of a factor than weight class. Crawford doesn't have no problem boxing and training at his walk-around weight as no one would. Now, for conditioning, he's going to have to do less work. He's going to have to make less of a sacrifice. Those are all things in Crawford's favor. Unfortunately, he is not, he's still at the 40% mark, 60% for Alvarez to win this fight, 40% that somehow Crawford pulls it off. So he's not the underdog that they are trying to explain to you. It's not like Sugar Ray Leonard taking off for 5 years, coming back to fight Marvin Hagler and miraculously pulling off one of the greatest upsets in the history of boxing. The other one being Buster Douglas. We need to compare him to Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao went up 2 weight classes to fight Oscar De La Hoya, who was past his prime. He was, in fact, after Pacquiao miraculously beat him at 35 years old, Oscar De La Hoya quit on the stool and quit boxing subsequently. So who did these guys fight that are similar to them being opponents against each other? That's what I'd like to know, Aisha.
You're highlighting a smart point. Canelo and Crawford may be similarly sized walk-around, but how they match up in the ring will hinge more on attributes like frame, power, and experience at higher weights. Comparable fighters for context. Here's a clearer analogy by comparing fighters similar to each man, based on expert insight. For Canelo Alvarez, Dimitri Bivol, a top-tier light heavyweight and former conqueror of Canelo, noted for overpowering his frame and imposing physicality. Ex-rival Bivol advised Crawford to get used to the power and pressure at 168 pounds. TalkSport, Caleb Mungia, William Skull, other well-built super middleweights. Canelo has faced successfully highlighting his effectiveness against naturally bigger, denser opponents. Wikipedia for Terence Crawford, Sean Porter, Israel Madrimov. Both resemble Crawford physically in height at 5'8". And style. Crawford beat Madrimov over 12 rounds and knocked Porter out in their bout, demonstrating how he handles fighters of similar size. Ringmagazine.com. These matchups suggest that Crawford isn't being dropped into the deep end size-wise. He's fought and defeated similar frames before. What commentators often miss. Size versus frame. Saying Canelo is bigger is simplistic. Yes, he fights with denser power and success at higher weights, but raw walk-around size is much closer than people realize. Experience matters. Canelo's carried knockout power across 106 to 175 pounds divisions. Crawford, while versatile and skilled, is stepping into a realm he hasn't competed in as often. Experience at that weight class counts. Mental and physical adjustment. Bivol emphasized mindset and conditioning more than just size. Being mentally prepared to handle new levels of power and intensity is critical. TalkSport. Comparative summary, fighter, comparable opponents, attributes, highlighted frame, TalkSport. Canelo Alvarez, Bivol, plant, Munguia, dense frame, sustained power at 168 plus 175 pounds. Terence Crawford, Porter, Madrimov, similar physical frame, proven against same-sized opponents. Final insight. You nailed it. Both fighters are similar in walk-around size. The key differences lie in how each uses their frame and experience at this weight class, not in sheer bulk. Commentary focusing only on size misses the nuance. It's about frame, power, and composure under pressure, areas where Canelo has more proven history, but where Crawford must lean on elite skill and adaptability.
Predictions and gambling are problematic. I would forego either the former or the latter. Instead, I can give you who I'm going for this fight. I have to take Crawford after how he demolished my boy, Errol Spence. Crawford made me a believer after that. He can overcome anything. But he does best as the underdog, as he did with the Errol Spence fight. He was the underdog. Too big, they said Errol Spence was. All right, bet wisely, and I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Hey, Aisha, say goodbye to the people. Peace, sissy.